we'll move on to the Transportation Committee's report.
Vice Mayor Davis, the Transportation Committee has 2 items, although there's 4 listed there, action items. They're 2 in 2 separate locations. The first one is the approval of creation of a driveway curb cut along the south side of 47th Street in front of 1071 47th. We currently, the council is currently has approved and currently exists a blue disabled curb painting there and signage. The resident has been parking off-street in a makeshift driveway. There's enough setback for the car to be parked behind a fence inside the property line, and they're requesting that in lieu of the blue curb there, they be allowed to put a curb cut in to allow access to the driveway. And the recommendation of the Transportation Committee is to approve the curb cut.
I'd entertain a motion on that.
So moved. Second.
Without exception. Okay, Maurice, 62nd and Hollis. That's a tough one.
Vice Mayor, Mayor Davis, members of the City Council. This item, we've developed a striping plan for improved pedestrian safety at the intersection of 62nd and Hollis Street. What Public Works proposal is to freshen up some of the striping. As you know, or may not know, we're getting ready for a street reconstruction project on Hollis Street. If you notice, the street's not in good shape, but the striping is very faded. And so one of the things we could do right away immediately to improve safety at this location would be to freshen up the center line. It's barely visible right now. So we need to add a center line in the street. The other thing that we looked at was that sight distance isn't the greatest for seeing pedestrians that are crossing the street from the park side of the street on the east side of the street, crossing over towards the west side of Hollis Street. So as you're approaching in a car here, you can't see the pedestrian standing at the curb. So there's a proposal to extend the red curb paint along the side to have at least 2 car lengths there for sight visibility. On both corners, we're looking at that as well. And then we need to freshen up the crosswalks. They're in good shape now. They'll be better when we reconstruct the street, but that's something we can look at. But the other thing we wanted to do is try to come up with a way to channelize the vehicles to give it a sense of narrowing. And so what we've come up with is striping along each quadrant of the street to give it a sense of narrowing. And when you do that, they call it friction for cars, so that they see a narrower area, and theoretically, and it's been shown that that's one of the traffic calming solutions out there to slow down the vehicles, to give it a sense of narrowing. So we're coming up with this proposal to stripe it. And we can have this done before we reconstruct the street to see if it works. We could just do it in regular paint and see what kind of effect it has. So this is something we can program to do before we reconstruct the street. The other thing is that we have a perception of speeding, and what we could do is to put up a speed indicator sign for the northbound direction. There's a light pole right here where we could put it in advance of the intersection, and then that'll give sense to the drivers, the motorists, how fast they were going along that street. So what we're proposing at this time is to install that speed indicator sign, freshen up the yellow paint, paint these quadrants here, and then see how it's working. Then we're going to repave the street this summer, and then hopefully we'll get an idea of how that's all going to work out.
Maurice, this is an interim solution because when the transit center is built, there'll be a four-way stoplight there?
Yes,
Paid for by the developer?
Upon completion of the transit center, not the garage, but the actual lab building on top, before they can have occupancy, they would have to have a traffic signal. in
Right,
place.
Right. But we've received a number of complaints about this intersection. There's such a heavy use at Doyle Hollis Park, and the Transportation Committee really thinks, we know this is an interim solution, but any comments from the council on this, or do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it. Do you have?
Without exception?
Without exception.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to point out one thing, that the red curb may take out an additional parking space on this side and on the opposite side of the street. So
May
we're-
save a life.
Okay, all right.
Vice Mayor Davis, there was one additional recommendation from the Traffic Committee on this intersection, and that was a suggestion that in the interim, there would be beacon lights put up as a crossing so that they flash. There has been some conversation with Wareham of paying for some of it, but there hasn't been any hard guarantees that they will. Staff is looking for direction from at least 3 council members to say, go ahead and work on this type of mitigation measure, the flashing yellow lights for the crossing at this point.
I would certainly propose that we go ahead and work with Rich to see if he can get, pay for a good portion of that. So I'd entertain a motion on it.
I move that we do that.
Okay.
Second.
Without exception. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. All right.